I'm Terry Ikumi. Nice of you to join us. My guest is the Executive Governor of Bauchi State, His Excellency, Senator Bala Mohammed. Your Excellency, welcome to Political Paradigm.
Thank you very much.
Let me begin by sympathizing with you over the death of the Emir of Jamari.
Thank you.
His Excellency, His Royal Highness, Ahmad Wabi.
Thank you for always being there for us. I mean, the channels, you reported it. Thank you.
You're most welcome. Let's begin the conversation with Bauchi State now. It's been 3 years now. It's your final lap as governor. When you look back at this past 3 years, and considering that we're entering an election year where almost nothing happens except politics, what would you say, or how would you say you have fared in the past 3 years as governor of Bauchi State?
Well, thank you, Terry, and the channels for the opportunity. Looking back, I have derived a lot of satisfaction for the journey so far, because we didn't come into governance blindfolded. We came with a plan even before we got there. Before I started my campaigns to run for the governorship of Bauchi State, I assembled some of the best in the country to advise me to take the baseline studies of the state in all facets, in all the multidimensional challenges that we have in the state. Agriculture, mostly infrastructure, services like education and health. And so we had a clear-cut vision of where we are, where we were and where we wanted to go. And so we hit the ground running, continue in a more dynamic way with the projects and programs that were abandoned or we inherited, and making sure that we came with a very robust cash flow arrangement based on the experiences we garnered over the years at the federal government, in the Senate and in the FCT, and trying to make sure we leverage on little resources and doing much, knowing that we have one of the largest states in the north. After Kano and Kaduna, we have the most populous state. And of course, our services and infrastructure were overstretched by migration and demographics. And we have the highest out-of-school children in the country. And of course, the roads, the schools were blown off, the hospitals, especially Medicare at the primary health center level where a majority of our people live. People are mostly agrarian, so we came up with an agri policy, infrastructure roadmap, and of course the cash flow that will take us there, knowing the fact that most of our monies were going into paying for civil service, for salaries and wages. So we really have come a long way, Terry, because we have built over 300 kilometers of good roads and across the states, and continue with the one that we have taken over, about 200. We have finished them. And the schools, we have built over 3,000 classrooms to make sure we mop up the children that are roaming about the street. We improve enrollment for education. Of course, healthcare-wise, we worked with the international community, WHO, UNICEF, and even the European Union. We are able to provide one functional PHC in each ward of 313 wards of the state, and even extra because we have over 400 functional PHC. Now we are grappling with the manpower, with the human capital, because we inherited only 50 doctors in the whole state. If you look at the doctor-patient cluster, is so huge, the gap. And there is a lot of attrition in terms of job abandonment due to poor welfare and so on and so forth. So we are addressing that. And of course, most of our resources are going into payment of salaries arising from the promotion that were done by the exiting administration. So we had to look at areas of verification to reduce the pressure on our treasury by dealing with the ghost worker syndrome in the state. By and large, we have improved elimination. We made sure we came up with a program to bring security. All our towns are lighted, especially the capital, and we work with the security agencies in the joint patrol, the army, the police, the SSS, and even our hunters, to make sure we sustain that status of being the best state in the north, where you can come and sleep without any fear. And of course, we know that we are the gateway to the northeast, to the northwest, to the north central, and by and large, one of the areas where most Nigerians want to live. So just to improve the quality of life.
Great. We'll talk about what you've done in education and the aspect of infrastructure. But you mentioned the cash inflow challenge. And I recall that a 2020 report of the CBN that looked at capital importation into different states showed that Bauchi State in 2019 did not receive any foreign direct investment. I don't know what you've put in place if that's changed. The report for 2021 is yet to come up. But what was responsible for that? Because we hear you talking about increasing the IGR of the state now. What was responsible for that lack of capital inflow? About 26 states, actually. It wasn't just Bauchi. But what was responsible for that?
So we improve our ease of doing business. Now we have a lot of interest in the various commodities industries and factories that were there in Bauchi. People are expressing interest, and we employ the best in terms of making sure that we open up the economy for people to come and invest. We have gotten investors in agriculture. We allocated over 20,000 hectares of land to major grain producers, rice and wheat, and of course sugarcane. And we are establishing a factory in the northern part of the
country. I may come in here, Your Excellency, my apologies. I just want to know the issue of the capital, foreign direct investment, the challenge you have.
That's what I'm coming to that, because you just have to have investing avenues before you attract all this. Our ease of doing business, we are third in the country, or fourth. I think we are fourth now. You can see we have improved from 2019 in terms of the capital inflow. We have improved our IGR from 300 a month to about 1 billion a month. That is giving us room to make sure we generate resources off the bank's shelves to be able to address some capital projects and programs. But the the foreign direct investment that we are talking about is a factor of the whole country. It's not just restricted to Bauchi. After all, we are in the hinterland, and of course, unless you create the enabling environment, you are not going to attract. But most of the investors who ran away have come back to Bauchi, and we have improved flight into Bauchi. We have 2 flights every day, and so people can come there easily. Hitherto it was not there. It has become a hub in the northeastern part of the country. As I said, we are a gateway to all the regions within the north. And of course, people from Gombe, from Plateau, from Yobe, from Jigawa, they all make Bauchi the hub that our dream is trying to create for Bauchi in terms of improving the economy. So we are very comfortable in terms of making sure we attract investors. Honestly, if you go to Bauchi, you can see it is a big heap of activities in various aspects.
Let's talk about education in Bauchi State, even which you also alluded to the fact that the number of out-of-school children in Bauchi State is alarming. How are you addressing this, especially with the teacher shortage that you also mentioned?
The teacher shortage is a big problem. Even while we have the teachers, they are not very qualified. And as we are improving enrollment, there is problem of teacher availability. And so we have worked with UNICEF and UNESCO to make sure that we improve the teacher availability. But certainly, the problem we have is the attitude of the parents. Enrollment is still very poor, especially at the secondary level, where you have boarding schools that can accommodate 200 per month. You only get about 20-30 people, students reporting. And that is really exacerbating the prevalence of out-of-school children. And of course, we have outlawed the Almajiri system along with our colleagues in the north, but it is still a recurring decimal in Bauchi. So this thing cannot be addressed immediately, but we have really improved. I have told you we built over 3,000 classrooms, and there is enrollment at the primary level. And of course, now we're addressing the teacher issue. Even those retired, we are improving, encouraging them to go back to the classrooms. And I too, I intend to start going to the classroom because I was once a teacher. Well,
would you be taking the, adopting the El-Rufai method, letting go of unqualified teachers?
Well, we want to take some aptitude tests for them. We have different attitudes in life. So my own attitude is to make sure we make the best out of it, because if we send them out, then we'll be left with nothing. We'll be left with a lot of problem of monumental dimension. And we are not so cosmopolitan like Kaduna. But certainly we are going to conduct some aptitude tests, and because we have so many polytechnics and colleges of education to massively train teachers. This is the program that we are entering this year.
When you talk about a classroom that could accommodate 200 pupils, and then you find just 20, and you attribute that to the attitude of the parents, one would question the homegrown school feeding program, which is supposed to be a nationwide thing. How is that not making an impact in your state?
No, I was specifically referring to the secondary school where we have boarding schools, not the primary school. To me, I think the homegrown feeding is something that I don't want to comment, because I have commented severally that it should have been the responsibility of the parents and the local authorities and the state governments. But when the federal government is doing something, you don't question it. But certainly it is not working, because the children are hardly fed. In my state, it will take months and months before I see any element of feeding from the federal government, and yet some monies have been spent. So I don't want to be accused of always complaining, but certainly that program is not working, and we would have deployed the money, stupendous amount being spent on homegrown feeding, to really creating the human capital, the teacher training, the classroom provision, and then encouragement to the teachers, to the traditional rulers to encourage enrollment.
You know, policymakers in the state attribute the large number of out-of-school children to many factors, one of which is poverty. And then there's another one of the influx of internally displaced persons into Bauchi State. Does the state have an IDP crisis?
We don't have IDP crisis as such, because we embarked on a better and more robust policy of constructive engagement, because most people come to Bauchi not as IDP. Some of them are even the elites. They retire from areas of insecurity, they come to Bauchi. For those that are coming running away, and they are mostly in the rural areas, they are just blending with the communities. We have similar problem with Gombe, and that is why you see they're just, because we have common culture and tradition, and you can hardly decipher between an IDP person and somebody that is running away and the really indigenous person. So we don't have IDP crisis. Even where we have IDPs, we are taking care of them adequately.
Let's talk about security now. Recently, you raised an alarm over an unknown helicopter flying over, I think, the Lamebura forest, which is a notorious bandit area. Then you called on the Air Force to do some investigation and hover around the area for security purpose. So far, what's the feedback you've got on that?
I was highly impressed with the response of the Nigerian Air Force, because the federal government has established a special task force, and with an air officer commanding, in the person of Air Marshal Tajuddin, and they are doing very well. They have assured me that they have capabilities. Going back, we got a report because we established a robust feedback mechanism. Our peace in Bauchi is not just won just like that. It is something that is very deliberate. It's based on a policy thrust that we establish, that security is the key to whatever we are going to do, so that we don't create a situation where farmers cannot go to the farm, hunters cannot go to hunt, and then school children cannot go to school. And of course, we have a joint patrol mechanism that we are doing with the army, with the police, even with the hunters. So some of the hunters who know the terrain very well reported to the SSS and to the police, and it was reported to me that an unidentified aircraft was seen hovering around the place and even dropping something. And that's why it was my duty as the chief executive of the state to raise the alarm. And the Air Force also said they have gotten the report through the SSS security services, and they are taking very serious measures to make sure that this thing does not happen, and if it comes, they can obliterate it, they can destroy it.
Yes, it's a security issue, no doubt, but since the alarm had already been raised, you can understand why some persons may be apprehensive and will want to know the details as to whether There were weapons actually being dropped or otherwise?
Yes, we don't know actually the mission, whether they were dropping personnel, insurgents, or they were dropping weapons. But certainly we suspect they were dropping weapons. And the place was being invaded by so many migrants from the northwest. And we are just trying to profile them, and that's how we got to know. We said we cannot just drive them away. And we have some problems with our local authorities who are flagrantly violating our bylaws by selling the forest, encouraging deforestation, and because people were mostly farmers, they were there, even though they are not indigenous of the state, we know the constitutional provision of allowing people, but we have to profile them. It is in the course of that we discovered that really some aircraft were seen around the place, and so we are doing something with. We don't want to compromise the security of what we are doing with the security agencies at this venue, but certainly we want to assure Nigerians and people around the area that government is conscious and aware, alert to its responsibility, and in conjunction with the federal agencies, we are doing something.
So it's safe to say you're getting the support of the federal government?
Yeah?
It's safe to say that you're getting the support of the federal government?
Yes, we are.
Is Toro local government still define security efforts? Because you had mentioned that
Toro is the gateway to all this. Because when they come from the northwest, they come through Toro to go to Das local government, Tafawa Balewa local government. And so it's the route, but it's the center of insecurity because of the cosmopolitan nature. I will not say cosmopolitan, the diverse ethnic groups that are in Toro, and the terrain and the vast forest that we have. Is the largest forest reserve we have, that is the Lamebura. And of course, the culture and tradition, proximity to areas of insecurity, proximity to plateau, and then of course, it becomes as if it is a no man's land. And so I'm very concerned. Even what we are doing in terms of monitoring and evaluation, it is more intense in Toro. If we were not doing that, then we wouldn't have been talking about it like that. Because most of them pass through to run to Taraba. You can see what is happening in Taraba in terms of abduction. The frequency of it is minimal in Bauchi, because they make it just as a route to go down the line and to other states like Gombe and the rest. But certainly Toro is giving me a lot of concern.
But you did mention that some traditional rulers were responsible for some of the support that some of these, should I call them bandits or terrorists, get. And you said at some point that you would take action. You said you were going to name some of these people.
Yes, we did. We did, and we even punished some of them. You see, it is not my character to denigrate and denounce the traditional institution, because I am a product of that institution. My father was a traditional title holder, and my cousin is now a district head. But certainly it is a fact. If you are put in a position of responsibility, you must face the challenges. Most of these problems of header-farmer clashes are caused by the corruption that is being perpetuated by the traditional institution and the local government officials, and sometimes even the security personnel in the local governments. They go ahead and give right of way to the bandits. They give right of way to unknown and profile settlers. They give support in terms of everything to deforest the forest, to make sure they cause a lot of tree felling for money making and for charcoal making. So we discovered in the first instance when we set up a committee, that's an emir and district heads and some local government, even a local government, because he was caretaker, we suspended, we removed him. We removed so many officers. For the emir, we suspended him, but after finding out what happened and the remorse shown, we returned him. And he's doing fantastic, because there was reward and there was punishment. Those security personnel who were doing very well, we rewarded them. The local government personnel, they were neck deep in it, were dismissed. And so we were doing something very serious in terms of making sure we address issues as they arise. And so we are taking the issue of engagement, community engagement with the emirs, who are doing very well now. They are district heads and they are water that they will take responsibility. Just recently I discovered that in Ningi local government, the chairman is responsible for the tree felling. We are taking measures because the civil defense, we are working with them, they told me. So I will not spare him just because he's a local government chairman. I don't want anybody to spare me because I have taken the issue of accountability so seriously. Like when I left government, there was no accountability that I didn't go through. And it has not stopped me because you just need to pass. If we are allowing people to do things just because they are so and so, then we cannot address the security situation in the country.
Your Excellency, let's talk about 2023 now. Well, it's quite interesting to some people that you want to do one term as governor and then shoot for the highest office in the land. And some are wondering why, when in most cases it will almost seem that a second term for you as governor is sure. What exactly is your reason for wanting to shelve the governorship ambition and chase that of the president?
Well, it's not a vain ambition. People have called me. I have garnered a lot of experience over the years. I have always been at the center. All my life, I worked from level 8 to 17 for those who know civil service, to the director level, before I resigned to become a senator. And I served here as a minister. I've established a lot of linkages and interactions and relationship within the national polity. I understand the politics and the polity very well. And so I was not surprised. I have most of my colleagues are retired. They are all over the country. And because of my multi-dimensional constituencies, I worked as a media man like you. So the calls were not surprising. And as a politician, you just don't ignore calls when they are coming to you. You must answer them. We are still in the process of a consultation. We will consult widely. I am consulting. Yes, we are in a very serious ambivalence because people are appreciating what we are doing in Bauchi, and so there is mixed feelings. Most people don't want me to go, even within my own ranks. They want me to stay to continue so that we can take the Bauchi project to a level where it will be a point of no return. At the same time, they are asking me to run for the presidency of Nigeria. So we are consulting. By the time we finish, we will take the balance because the bigger responsibility, the bigger opportunity to serve Nigeria and even to serve Bauchi.
We understand the aspect of consulting because you were recently with former President Goodluck Jonathan. You went to consult, and I believe to seek his blessings. We've also heard that he's likely to be in this race.
Yes, the issue of him getting into the race, he had been a president, and you know I was one of the major beneficiaries of his presidency or one of his lieutenants, and I would not just go to this without consulting him and getting his blessings. And of course, time has come when we have to take a decision, and you heard what he said. I will never run with him if he's running, certainly, because I believe in that. That's the moral issue that I have put on myself, and I have to put that hedge. And of course, even right from the onset, he had agreed that I can go ahead and do it. But certainly, I have the utmost respect for him. He's the only one that can stop me from doing things, even if I don't want. He had been encouraging me. And the issue of his running is his own volition, is his own decision. He did not tell me he's running. You heard what I said. If he's running, I will not run. But certainly, when we get to the river, we cross it, or to the bridge. If he's running, I know I will withdraw. But certainly, he said he has given me his blessing. He has passed some compliments of me, for which I think is more than $1 billion to me, because to serve somebody at the level that we have served, I have served him, and for him to say all these things, they are so complimentary and encouraging to me.
So would you run against former Vice President Atiku Abubakar if he runs?
Well, for Atiku, we are coming from the same zone. I have utmost respect for him. He too, I consulted him, we discussed, and of course, I know he had been running, and if he will allow me to run, I will run for him and for every other Nigerian. Like others, you see, my politics is not a do-or-die affair. I am consulting with even Senator Bukola Saraki, with His Excellency Governor Kwankwaso and Governor Tambuwal. To me, presidency is a mark of consensus. You have to consult. And if my ideas of freeing resources, using little money to develop the country, what I have started in Bauchi and what I have done in FCT in terms of infrastructural delivery, if it can be actualized by anybody, I don't have to do it. Because at 63, I think I have exceeded my personal expectations of myself. But as a patriot, I'm ready to present myself, to serve the country to the best of my ability, because I know the job and I know the system, I know the country, I know the people, and I have established very concrete and positive relationship with them. And so, irrespective of any player, I will present myself. But if any person better than me comes on board, I'm ready to work with him.
Do you think you stand out among all the potential aspirants of the People's Democratic Party?
Out of modesty, I can't say I stand out, because definitely there are those who have been doing it before me. It is you or other players that will say this man stands out, but certainly I wouldn't say I'm the best out of it. It is for you to say, but certainly, but you know, I'm mostly experienced, and of course I do my things with a lot of conviction, modesty, and patriotism. And I don't look at things from the point of view of north-south dichotomy, ethnic profiling, or what have you. I work with every ethnic group in the country because I know my background. I know that I benefited mostly from the federal government, having worked up to directorial and senatorial ministerial level. And so, to me, Nigeria is a beautiful country. Our diversity is our sense of strength. And unless we approach issues like this, unless we as elites begin to break grounds, we are going to overstretch our discretion and cause the friction that is going to be catastrophic.
Let's talk about the statement credited to you. You are quoted to have said that former Vice President Atiku Abubakar is a good candidate, a qualified candidate, but he's too old for the office. Did you mean that in the entirety?
You see, I said his age.
Out of context?
No, I was quoted out of context. I can never insult Vice President Atiku Abubakar because I have utmost respect for him. What I said is that Atiku is getting aspiration fatigued. Atiku is the most qualified person. If Nigerians accept him, I'm ready to work with him. And of course, but if he gives me the latitude and the leverage, I'm ready to take it and do it for him and implement those policies that he would have wanted to do it himself on his behalf and on behalf of everybody. So I was not really insulting him, because it's insulting to say somebody is too old. I say his age, and it is a fact. He's 70-something years old, but certainly he's still very strong, because I wish I can be like him, because at his age, he appears to be very agile, very strong. But certainly, I was just playing it with him that if he can allow me, since we come from the same zone, I will be able to do as much as what he can do on his behalf and on behalf of the zone and the country.
I find that you're very insistent on this whole zone thing and the fact that your zone if you get the support of your zone, you will run. It's a slightly different position from what we've gathered the whole time from the PDP, especially because the Governors Forum, the PDP Governors Forum has met, the Southern Governors Forum has also met, and the position at the time was that the power should shift to the South. But you've always insisted that the Northeast, like the Southeast, has not enjoyed power. The concern now would be, is this not going to pitch you against some of your colleagues, basically?
You see, this permutation, that calculation is very selfish and undemocratic. Because if you just summarily dismiss a portion of the country or a section or a zone because they come from that portion that you cannot run, you are trampling on somebody's constitutional rights, universal suffrage. Again, PDP as a party, by which I belong, doesn't have to really zone its presidency to the South. Because if you do that, you further exacerbate the exclusion of the North. The 16 years that we were at the center, which Obasanjo served 8 years, and Jonathan, my president, that I worked hard for him to ascend to power, spent 14 years. And the last president of the PDP is from the South, South in fact. So you would just presume or assume that out of equity, justice, it is the turn of the North in PDP to produce a candidate. You cannot shut down all the parties as advocated by some, that all the parties must field a southerner. You don't do that in a multi-party democracy like Nigeria. Some of us who championed or advocated for the doctrine of necessity for the ascension of the power of Jonathan, we did that because of equity and justice and constitutional democracy. So for anybody to come and shut me down because I'm coming from the north is unconstitutional and unfair. And if my colleagues from the south, irrespective of party, want to do that, I'm telling them it's unconstitutional. They are not the people to determine who will become a candidate. It is the primaries of the party, it is the Nigerians and the Nigerian people that will do that. So we as governors must stop the arrogance of trying to implement or enforce something that is undemocratic. We must respect the various organs of the party, the constitutions of the party, and the right of Nigerians to choose whoever they want, irrespective of who was in power or not. And of course, what you said lastly about the southeast and the northeast is true. We had a little stint of power or touch of power in the estimate of Nigerian democratic or even military administrations. So when you look at it, why do you shut down the northeast? Because we have never had anything since the prime minister. In fact, we have never had a president. What we had was a prime minister. It was the southeast who even had a president then, even though he was ceremonial. And thereafter, they had Iransi as a military president. So, but all these issues are irrelevant. What we should try to do is to enforce or enshrine merit-driven electoral and electioneering processes that will bring out the best that will serve this country. And some of us who have been at the center, who have shown patriotism and nationalism, who have established structures and built bridges, should be given the opportunity. And anybody like us, even those agitators from any part of the country, if he has what it takes to take Nigeria out of the present quagmire, definitely I'm there with him.
Well, it seems to be a major problem in the PDP now, the issue of zoning. And former Deputy Senate President Atiku Abubakar has said it's a major concern for the People's Democratic Party. Do you see that as a problem for the PDP now? Because it's not clear what stance the PDP would take, even though it seemed like it was clear at the time when the conversation of zoning was up, and the PDP was clearly going to zone this thing to the south.
You see, I said I'm a governor, a member of the Governors Forum. I am not a party official. I am not qualified to talk about zoning. Zoning is the responsibility of the organs of the party, and when they zone, we are there to oblige. But certainly, nobody should just wake up and say, we must zone. I was even misquoted that the North must. I didn't say must. I said should. So we should not arrogate ourselves powers that we don't have. Even as political players, yes, we can say things to favor us, but we should know that there are those who are statutorily responsible for determining zoning and charting zoning or no zoning, either merit-based system or a strategy that will make a party to win. I have said it. The APC must, as a matter of morality, but it is not a constitutional must, produce their candidate from the south, because our father of the nation now is from the north, but not the PDP and other parties. So, but for anybody to sit down, no matter his position and place, to say that PDP has zoning crisis is just a pigment of imagination. Our chairman of the party has said it. It is not something that is crisis-driven. It's something that can be resolved, and PDP has that pedigree, that experience to always surmount all these perceived problems which people are bringing forward so that they can get us in this array.
But would you respect the position of the party if it decides to zone it to the south? Because you said that it's not the governors that should decide.
Party decision is paramount. It's the party, and we will be part of the decision. All the decision of the party will be part of it. If they zone it, well and good. But you know, it will not constitutionally stop anybody from running. Even when parties zone some position to certain zone, some people really even contested. My president contested with other people even though he was incumbent.
Does that mean if the party zones it to the south, he will still run? Will you still run if the party zones it to the south?
No, that will be subject to consultation and decision making. If I discover that I have been shortchanged, I can always go for my rights. But if it is a process of consensus and agreement, who am I? I'm a small person. I'm just a servant of the people. If it is a decision, I said my presidency or my politics is not a do or die matter. I'm a student of President Jonathan, and therefore we don't believe in doing it by force or causing bloodshed or causing civil strife or any trouble for the country. We can always make sacrifice.
Do you support the rotation of power?
I do, because that is what we require now before we really develop as a nation and do away with all these sentiments of regional representation, ethnic representation, date of birth, place of birth, and the rest. Because we must develop or aspire to reach a stage where people will be voted on their merit. There will be no suspicion and mistrust. Most of these issues are brought forward by elites because of their selfish interests. I am not running because I'm just from the Northeast. I'm running because I feel I'm eminently qualified. And I said if somebody is more qualified, which I know there are, if they come out and I see that they can do what I want to do, I'm ready to support the person. So the issue of this zoning or rotation is just an element or a manifestation of underdevelopment itself. So my vision for Nigeria is for it to assume that monolithic approach to leadership selection, where people will be selected on merit and we can put square pegs in square holes. Not to put people, even when you look, all this crisis, there is a lot in presidency. I was not a president. When Jonathan was a president, I garnered a lot of influence and power and assisted people across the board from my ethnic group, from other places. So I was actually the manifestation of that presidency. I don't have to be a president if somebody else is good. So rotation is good because people identify with zones, identify with ethnic groups, identify with tribes, and they always want to be part and parcel of this. But our approach in the coming forward in my presidency, I will put all the positions in Nigeria on the table, and I will make sure there is equitable distribution of that position, those positions, to each of the federating states and entities, so that no section will feel excluded. The security infrastructure, the powers, the offices of the ministers, some of the key ones, only the positions that are bureaucratic in nature cannot be subjected to equitable distribution because they are based on career progression. So definitely we have to move forward. I must be able to relate with you as a Nigerian and appreciate what you can do for the country, not knowing your tribe or your religious background. That's what Jonathan did to me. I was not in his party. We don't belong to the same religion, even to the same geographical area. He brought me and gave me FCT minister. And that challenged me to perform. And I think I perform modestly well. And that's what we should do, to come together on the basis of patriotism and nationalism on the national project called Nigeria.
So how then would you propose that we go about this rotation of power?
Oh, the rotation, we should still go like this. You can see, as I said, Mr. President is finishing his tenure from the north. In his party, they should make sure it is shifted to the south.
That's for the APC?
Yes. For the PDP, a southern president was the last occupant of that office. A northerner should take it. And I am presenting myself if I finish my consultation, so that you can come and queue and get a young man like me to be our president.
So going forward, are you saying that if the PDP gives 4 years to a president from the south, the next 4 years? Yeah, the PDP. If the PDP gives okay, let's go to the north, because I was coming from former President Jonathan's era. If the PDP gives this position to the north, going forward, is it 4 years for the south?
No.
Because President Jonathan did 4 years. No. Except you want to count
you don't
2
stop
years
somebody from his tenure. If I get it, or Atiku Abubakar gets it, he's entitled to first
but the
and
South
second
would
term.
argue that they didn't conclude their 2
terms. And that's what I
terms.
fought against when Jonathan ascended to the power. Some Northerners felt that he should not be there. I said no. The Constitution brought a vice to be there, and by the time he assumed that office, he's a Nigerian. He's entitled to run for the presidency. And that's why he went for his first term after completing the first term of his boss. And he was also entitled to the second term of his term. And so you don't stop somebody and shut him down from exercising his right because you want to do the secondary thing, that is zoning or rotation. The primary thing is the universal human right and suffrage as enshrined in the Constitution.
So that's where I'm coming to, where I said that the people from the South insist that they did not do a second term. Jonathan didn't do a second term.
Yes. But he completed the term of his boss and did the first term. And Nigerians, he was presented. Nigerians didn't vote for us. It is not the fault of Jonathan, not the fault of the party, but the decision of Nigerians who gave it to Buhari. And so whoever comes in now, he is entitled to first and second term. You don't tell him, go away as a president, we will now rotate. You don't do that in democracy. Because it's an entitlement. Just the way Jonathan was entitled to second term, even though some Northerners felt that he should have vacated the first term. And I advocated that no, he was entitled to his second term, which he ran and lost. So whoever becomes from the North is entitled to the full blaze of his first and second term. But after that, it must rotate back.
Is it your concern, as it is for many, that the chances of the PDP going into 2023 would depend on which zone that the presidency goes?
Nigerians are looking for good governance. We should please exit from all these politics.
But should we ignore the agitations? The agitations that we hear now?
No, it's just an elitist creation. I have supporters from the North, South who want me to be president. Most of my supporters are from the South, my brother Terry. So if some people are agitating using the media that they own and the rest to just make a point, it is their own pigment of imagination. Let me get the ticket and you will see wonders. I will get more votes from the South because they know me, they trust me. Election is a trust. And they know they can trust me.
How can they trust you?
Because I'm trustworthy.
What have you done for the people of the South to gain their trust?
Yes, because when I was at the center, I was a jolly good friend to everybody. Maybe you don't know me. So, but I'm not praising myself or campaigning. I'm just giving you an example. We should de-emphasize this rotation just because some people want to use it to destroy PDP. PDP has the opportunity of forming a government. I am not insisting that I must. Atiku is not saying he must. Konkoso is not saying he must. We are presenting ourselves as Nigerians on a clean slate after the tenure of a Southerner. And we are saying even the Southerners are free to come and agitate to become president so that we can compete on the basis of our strengths and weaknesses.
Is it your opinion that the conversation of rotation of power or power moving to the South is a ploy to destabilize the PDP?
I think it's part of it. It's a ploy to destabilize this, or it's a ploy to deprive some of us of our citizenship rights and privileges, or a ploy to plunge the party, which is very strong, into crisis. But I am telling you who will surmount this. Now, because it's a creation of some of the candidates, interested parties, people from the South. But I'm advising them to come and join us as patriots and compatriots to compete for that vantage office and put things on the table and give Nigerians the opportunity to choose, not to hide behind any sectional ploy or any unforeseen agenda to divide our party and plunge the country into crisis.
Your Excellency, let's talk about the Electoral Act Amendment Bill. It's still a conversation because it's not been signed by the president, and I know that you've followed the conversation and the processes so far. Are you satisfied with the Electoral Act Amendment Bill as it is now?
Well, there are some areas that need to be amended and to be corrected, and areas that need to be included, but I am not a legislator. To me, wherever it goes, we are ready if it becomes a law. It is the responsibility of the parliament and the president, and I understand that he is already consulting and discussing because it's a serious issue, and I think I will leave it at that, not to start apportioning blame on the legislator.
But do you expect the president to sign it now?
He must sign, because there will be election after the electoral bill is signed, and we are running out of time. Your party's SA said it at one of the events in Nails. So definitely it will be signed. Whether it will satisfy our everybody's aspiration or not is a matter of what the outcome would be. But certainly it will not satisfy everybody, because we are divided, especially on the character of primaries and the rest. So to me, we should just make the best use of whatever comes out, so that it doesn't become a big issue that will divide us. Because even some of the issues are based on personal protection of our personal aspirations, either as legislators or as executives or political players in the system, not looking at the country at large with the insecurity, the cost of election, the cost of governance, and so on and so forth, which should be our primary concern.
If the president withholds his assent to the Electoral Act Amendment Bill, do you think that would have an effect or a negative effect on his legacy?
Well, I don't know, because it depends on how you see it. Maybe his legacy is to make sure he saves cost, because the direct primaries is going to be very costly, and the insecurity may not allow some states to even hold such a primary. You know it, the congregational character of direct primaries, where you line up and the rest. Or certainly giving into one side that they say is the legislator that is for this, it is the governors that is this. But I want to tell you, the governors are not particularly too passionate about any side of the coin. We are more concerned about what is best for the country. And our chairman has said this severally, and we are ready to be consulted. You have not had any opinion being expressed against it per se, as per the permutation or speculation in the media. But certainly, I know Mr. President will take the responsibility that is the best for us. I don't want to preempt.
There's an amendment in that bill now, which raises the cost of elections, the election expenses, from 1 billion to 5 billion.
I said it. I say, are we concerned about the cost of election and the attendant perception of corruption that is eminent or embedded in it? Even the cost of governance. What kind of thing do we want to say? What legacy do we want to leave behind? So whatever happens, let's give benefit of doubt to the parliament and to the president, so that by the time it comes, I want you to call me so that
but at the time when we're concerned about, as you mentioned, cost of governance and cost of our elections, Parliament is proposing an increase from 1 billion to 5 billion as election expense for the office of for a presidential candidate. Is that not outrageous?
Terry,
people like you.
It is not outrageous.
You have always said
let
you
me
don't
tell
have
you,
funds.
the parliament is being realistic, but it is costly. Maybe we should continue to pretend as a country or as a people. Presidential election in Nigeria costs more than 5 billion naira. Whether you do it by fundraising or by your own money, Terry, if you want to run for the president, you should have more than 5 billion naira. So to me, it is realistic for that amount to be suggested by the parliament. It is not too much. But if we pretend, it's just like you want to do oath of allegiance, you go and pay 5 naira. It is not even the cost of the paper. So I think that cost is very realistic, but it will appear costly. For the governor, they say 1 billion, isn't it?
Yes, for the governors.
So the governor will spend up to 1 billion. From the time you express interest, you go through the primaries, you do the electioneering and the campaigns, which you bear yourself. I think we need to do something that can be measured, that can be monitored, that we know is realistic, rather than putting something just to satisfy our
But
selves
does this
that
not
it is
give
not
room?
costly.
Does this not give room to corruption? 5 billion naira is a lot of money. Do you have 5 billion? Do you have 5 billion?
Presidential democracy is always very expensive.
Your Excellency, do you have 5 billion to run for president?
I don't, but I can
Where's
raise
the
it.
funding going to come from?
It's from fund. Maybe you will give me 10 naira, Terry. You see, there is ways and means even of doing. The ways and means is what you liberate and monitor. INEC can monitor that. How did you raise the money? Did you just go to your account and supposing somebody is rich and he has 5 billion, is it an offense for him to spend? If I don't have 5 billion, there are so many presidential candidates that have up to 20 billion. And Terry, they will spend the money. Even the cost of movement is how much. So, I mean, if it will satisfy Nigerians to continue to pretend that we should cut it to 1 billion, well, they should put it. But to me, it is a realistic reflection of the cost of election in Nigeria at the moment.
Okay, let's talk about the issue with former Speaker of the House of Representatives, Dogara. He's sort of blamed your government as being responsible for his suspension as from the Bauchi Emirate Council. It's been 2 weeks now and you're yet to respond to that statement. Now, the question is, were you responsible for that suspension?
Well, traditional titles are so small for me to waste my time looking at a traditional title holder. I'm dealing with the challenges of governance in the state. If Dogara told you that he is suspended, he should ask himself why he was suspended. At least the emir gave him. And he did not seek my opinion or my approval before he gave him. And I was there when he gave him. So I will not be a party to discussing something that's embedded with mediocrity, something that is just an entity, something that is not an issue. It will not add value to even the honor or to me. I have nothing to do with this issue of suspending him. He knew what he did, and if he didn't do it, he should prove himself in court or to the emir or to Nigerians. So please, I'm surprised that Terry, you raise an issue that is of no importance to me, to you, to Bauchi State, and to everybody.
Well, you do realize that he said that the pressure came from the Bauchi State government to the Emirate Council.
I did not even know the time he was suspended. So I had no hand, the government had no hand, but you know government is big. Maybe there is only one small man that would give directives. And that is why we must respect government. But me, as a person, I will swear I have no hand in it. But if maybe they do it to satisfy me, because they know what he was doing was wrong, or they perceive it is wrong, or they adjust to be wrong, I would say it's okay. But certainly, I have no hand in it.
In this final lap, virtually across the country, it's an election year. What do you expect to see in terms of changes in the polity ahead of the elections?
Well, I want to see a robust electoral act being signed that will give us clear-cut timeline, plan for the election, and of course security being provided, improved. I have heard my colleague from Borno saying that Boko Haram will soon be a sin of the past. I want it to be off our shelf, our sleeves, and of course I want INEC to come up with projects and programs that will ensure Nigerians that their votes will matter and that Nigerians will be given the opportunity to choose who they desire to lead them. And of course, for the parties, to minimize rancor, especially some of us, the major players, not to make it a do or die. All the stakeholders at the various levels, we should be interacting, even inter-party interactions, so that we can minimize friction and, of course, minimize violence. We should be peaceful in our approach, not too passionate and in our aspiration to lead. If we are leading to serve, we should know that service is not by force. Service is something that is done with humility. And as a civil servant, I always believe that the electorate, the people, are supreme. We should always approach issues and not persons or personalities. We should not be portraying ourselves as criminals, as crooks, or running at each other, calling ourselves names, as to cause perception problem in the electorate and create so much ambivalence and delusion and, of course, disillusionment in the system. Because what we have been doing over the years as political players, going to EFCC, going to the party rallies and calling ourselves all sorts of things, is creating a consciousness in the electorate. It's creating doubts and suspicion and mistrust. And this country is so diverse, as you said. We should be able to harness that diversity. We should be able to come together as elites, irrespective of where we come from. We should respect each ethnic group, each person, each party, each CBO. All our civil society groups should always try to give us the wake-up call that is genuine, that is good, based on the truth. So that at the end of the day, if we have good government at the center, we will not be having this infrastructural decay, we will not be having insecurity, we will not be lagging behind with the sparks and the prevalence of what I would say in a modest way, sparks of self-determination coming up in some portion of the country because they feel they are really should change. There should be equity and justice.
Your Excellency, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Terry.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, that's Political Paradigm. Thanks for your time. I'm Terry Ikumi. Goodbye.